Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I am going to be doing a French country dollhouse bedroom makeover. Here's a look at how the room started. I already pulled up the carpet and some of the trim down the bottom, and now I am using some of Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white to go over the top of the pink paint that was already on the walls. I want to cover that up and also make sure that that pink doesn't bleed through the white chalk paint that I'm now going to be applying to the whole room. I really wanted to give this room a French country look, so once the paint was dry, I took out some balsa wood plank strips that I had, and you can see I've just made some little lines in the wood, and I just used my Cricut cutter there. And I'm also going in now and I'm going to go back over the top of those lines that I've already done so that I can make those grooves a bit thicker and deeper, so that when I go over the top of them with paint, they will be more visible. I felt like doing this in the plank format was going to be a lot easier than me adding them stick by stick or wood by wood. You can see I have two lines there, and now I'm going in with just a craft knife and I'm able to use that to just go over the top of the center, and you can see it's made a larger groove. As I said, this was done in balsa wood, so it's a lot easier to work with. I'm now coming in with a white chalk paint and I'm going to be painting each of the panels that I've made. This is going to go about halfway up the wall in my dollhouse, and I really want it to have a bead board kind of look. I ended up doing 2 coats to get the coverage that I wanted here. While these were drying, I turned my attention to the flooring. I got these sheets at a Dollhouse fair. I shared that in a previous video, and it's already been cut out. They're little wood strips with an adhesive backing. I'm going to be staining those with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Antiquing Glaze. I'm going to water it down a little bit, and that way I can do a bunch of coats, and it's also going to help the stain to be absorbed a bit more evenly as well. So I ended up doing 2 coats of this because I really wanted a dark timber look floor. Now I went with these products because it was just easier. Obviously you could use paddle pop sticks or coffee stirrers as an alternative. Next, I'm going to measure out how much I'm going to need to cut off so that it will fit in my dollhouse. I'm going to have to cut off a couple of centimeters, and I'm able to just do that with some scissors. And then after I've done that, I did have to trim a little bit off the length as well. But ultimately, this was very easy. As you can see here, I'm just going to peel the backing off so that the adhesive is revealed there, and then I'm going to position it in the room, and it's just as easy as me sliding it into place. I also want to add some wallpaper to this space, so I'm going to lay down one of my bead board paneling strips there, and I'm just going to measure how much of the wall is going to be revealed above that, and also obviously how long. And then I'm going to be cutting out this beautiful blue toile wallpaper that I bought online. I will link the website that I bought that from, and again, I'm just using my Cricut cutter here just to trim that to size. Next, I'm going to be using this double-sided adhesive tape, and I'm just going to actually place it directly on the wall and just lay those down. I'm not going to pull the backings off those until obviously I have them all in place. Now obviously I could have just used some glue to attach the wallpaper, but this was just an easier method so that I didn't accidentally mess up the paper, use too much glue or not enough. I have peeled the backing off the tape, and now I'm going to position the wallpaper over the top of my adhesive strips there, and then I'm just smoothing that out. And I'm going to be repeating the same process, but this time I'm actually going to put the double-sided tape directly on the wallpaper. This was just a little bit easier, especially for the spots up the back, a little bit tricky to reach, and then I'm just attaching that. And obviously, again, you can definitely use glue. This was just the easiest option for me. I'm just positioning the wallpaper here, and you can see I'm just going to actually crease the area where I'm going to have to cut around the door, and then I will have to transition that wallpaper, obviously, because we've run out of paper from that particular strip, but because of the toile pattern itself, I felt like it wasn't that noticeable anyway. Once I have that piece in position, I can attach the last piece of the wallpaper for the bedroom. Next, I'm going to start attaching that bead board paneling that I created. I'm using the double-sided tape again, and I'm just using that to position it in place. And again, this was just so much easier than trying to use glue, and it does have a very firm hold, so I'm not worried about it staying in place. So I'm just going to attach each of those pieces until I have the entire lower part of the wall covered with that beadboard. Next, I wanted to add a little trim up the top and down the bottom, so I'm actually just going to use some coffee stirrer sticks, and I'm going to just be cutting off the curved ends of those with my Cricut cutter there. I'm just going to cut off both ends, and then I'm going to apply 2 coats of that same white chalk paint that I used on the bead board, and I'm just measuring here how much I'm going to need, cutting that with scissors for this part. And I did end up using super glue gel for this step, and I'm actually going to just sit it on top of the beadboard panel there. I just really liked how that looked. I am going to be using the same little trim pieces for some trim or some skirting board around the bottom as well. There was a little gap under the bedroom door, so when I got to that spot, I just added and glued in another little piece of wood so that my trim had something to be glued to. Now let's move on to the furniture. I'm going to be starting with this mantle that I got online, and I'm going to be painting it with 2 coats of this sort of French linen tone chalk paint, and I'm going to be painting the entire piece in that. Now I'm not worried about the paint adhering. This is a chalk paint. It does have a built-in sealer, so I'm not worried about having to do a top coat either. I'm just going to paint the entire piece. And then when I get to the top, once I am finished painting that and it's completely dry, I did then take out some more of that Van Dyke Brown antiquing glaze, and I'm going to go over the top of just the top of the mantle. I want to make this look like a timber top of the mantle, so I ended up doing 2 light coats on this section. When that was dry, I took out this little resin piece that I had in my stash, and I'm just painting that in the same French linen type of paint, and then I am going over the top of the dry paint with some of that Van Dyke Brown antiquing glaze and sort of wiping some of that off. I am then going to also add some of the antiquing glaze to the rest of the fireplace, but I am going to be wiping back some of that excess because with this particular coat of the glaze, I'm just trying to create some age and to highlight some of the curves and just bring out some of that definition in the fireplace. Once the glaze was dry, I then took out some super glue, and I'm going to glue that little resin piece to the front section of the fireplace. And I really feel like this definitely gives it a bit more of a French country look. I'm then coming in with Paint Couture's Luxe Metallic Paint in the color Black Pearl. Now this gives the appearance of cast iron, so I'm just going to be adding it to the little grate at the front there, and I feel like this is just the perfect color and look for this little fireplace. So I'm just going to be adding 1 coat of this. It has really good coverage, and then I'll let that dry completely. Finally, I also decided to add a little bit of Bronze Luxe Metallic Paint to some of the details there on the resin piece, and also on just some of the curved details on the front part of the fireplace there, just to give it a bit more French country, a little bit more elegance. Next, I'm going to be working on these little generic drawers. I'm going to paint them with that same French linen paint that we did for the mantle, but I'm just going to be painting the top sections of each of these. I'm also doing that on the little single drawer as well there. Now for this, once it was dry, I also then went in and added that Van Dyke Brown glaze to the top so that I could simulate the look of a wood top or a stained wood top. This is going to help tie in with that mantle, and I did end up doing 2 coats of this on both of the little drawers. As you may have guessed, I do like a vintage finish, a worn finish, so I am going to use some more of that glaze on the rest of the drawers. I don't have any other paint down, so we are not going for full coverage here. I'm going to be adding it, and then I am going to be wiping some of it away. Again, I just want to give it more of a worn look. I'm going French country, but more of sort of an antiqued look, so adding this is definitely going to give a bit more character to these plain drawers, and I'm going to repeat the same process on the little set of drawers as well. Next, I'm going to move on to the bed. I bought this online as well and I loved the shape, but it felt a little bit too new looking. So I'm going to go in and add some of the watered down Van Dyke Brown glaze mixture. I'm adding it first to the section that I believe is meant to look like wicker. And I'm just really working it into those details again to create that sense of age. I did end up adding some of that glaze to the rest of the bed as well. I didn't want it too dark, but again, I want it to have signs of age and for it to have a little bit more of a creamy tone to it as well, and not look so new and perfect. I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you guys for your patience in waiting for my first official Dollhouse makeover video. It took a little bit longer than I thought. I really wanted to do my best and get it looking exactly how I wanted. So I definitely had to take a little bit longer to get everything looking the way that I wanted. So hopefully you are enjoying this video and I hope that you like the end result. When the glaze was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic and I'm going to be adding it in a few areas. I'm adding it to the curved detail at the front there, and I'm also going to be adding it to the feet. I just want some subtle shines of this beautiful bronze, and I am going to end up doing 2 coats to get the coverage that I want. I'm adding a little bit of the bronze to the top of the bed head, and I am going to just go over the top curved section there again just for that hint of bronze, and I also did it to the bed head section as well. Next, I'm going to focus on the bedding. It already came with a little mattress with some fabric glued on it, but it wasn't to my taste. So I'm just going to cut out some white fabric that I thrifted. This is going to be the bedspread. Before I go any further with that though, I did decide to take out some drop cloth and I'm actually just going to hot glue that directly onto the little mattress to help hide that blue fabric. There's nothing wrong with it, it just wasn't to my taste. So also, I know because I'm using the hot glue, if I really want, I could reheat and reactivate that glue and I'll be able to peel that off. Once I have finished covering the base, I can turn my attention to the bedspread. I'm going to be using some of this lovely lace. Again, I thrifted a bag of this. I think it was about $3. There was a lot of different ribbons in it. And I'm just going to trim that to size because I'm going to be adding some of this down the bottom and I will be doing another strip of it a bit further up. I'm just going to add some hot glue to the end of the fabric there and glue the lace in place. And then once I have that secured in place, I am going to add another strip of glue to the other section of the lace to help hold that in place. I really wanted this to look like a sort of vintage lace comforter or just a really lovely decorative bedspread. I didn't want to go too plain, but obviously we are sticking with the neutral colors. I then flipped it over and I'm just going to add another strip of glue so that I can fold the lace and the fabric over and just give it a bit of a neater edge, make it look a bit more like a hemmed item. Now you definitely could use a sewing machine for this or hand sew this, but I am doing it for a dollhouse, so I just felt like hot glue would be fine for this particular project. Once I have the rest of that glued down in place, I am going to trim off the excess lace, and then here I'm just working out how I want the top section to lay. I want to fold that over a bit so it has a little bit of height, and then I'm going to add some more glue, and then as I said before, I am going to add another piece of this lace over the top, just layering that a bit further up and over the top. I'm going to add some glue to the top section and down the sides as well so that it stays in place and hangs down by the sides of the bed instead of sort of just like fanning out when the mattress is in the bed frame itself. So once I have that glued in place, I am just going to sit it back in the bed frame, see how that looks. And now the bed came with a pillow, but it had that same blue fabric, so I'm just going to fold over some fabric over the top of it. It's the same white as the bedspread, and I am going to trim off the edges and then add another strip of glue to hold that in place. Again, this is just really simple This was thrifted fabric. It just cost me, I think it was $1. So I'm really just trying to do this, well, some of it on a bit of a budget. So hot glue and thrifted items. Once I've done that, I took out some of this lovely lace. Again, this was in that thrifted bag of lace that I got, and I'm just going to glue it along the front there. Just a couple of beads of glue. Obviously, this isn't a real pillow, so I don't need to be worried about wear and tear. I'm then going to flip it over, and I'm going to glue the other parts of the lace in place, trim off any of the excess. And again, if using hot glue bothers you, you could definitely use a sewing machine or a needle and thread for this part. I am using a low temp hot glue gun for this. I then took out these little self-adhesive pearls. They've got some sticky stuff on the back, and I'm going to add that to the pillow. All it takes is for me to trim it to size and just press down. Again, I thrifted this for about $1. Next, let's move on to this little wardrobe. Obviously, I love the shape of this, but the color's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to use that same French linen color as my base. And I did end up doing 2 coats on this particular piece, and then you will see a little bit later that I did also paint the inside of the wardrobe, because I do envision being able to put some cute little things in there and maybe do some videos showing you guys how I style that up. But yes, definitely painting the inside and obviously the bottom sections of this as well. This particular wardrobe was actually a Facebook marketplace find. I bought a bulk lot off a lovely lady, and it was definitely my style, but definitely I'm going to be painting each of them to match that French country vibe that I'm going for. Next, I'm going to use some of that watered down glaze mixture to really work it into the grooves on this piece, again to create a vintage look. I was a little bit stuck on this piece for a little while. I had to put it to one side. I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go with it. So this was the last step on it for a little while. But then I decided to take out my Redesign molds. This is Madame Garland, and I'm just going to work some air dry clay into one of those pieces. And I am going to be then pulling that out. I'm not going to use the whole thing, however. I put it on the wardrobe and decided I just wanted to trim off that bow and have that circular section in the center there, and also having that on the other side as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to glue that in place. I had a little bit break off, but as you can see, it's very easily glued back in place. I'm going to add the same design on the left hand side as well and glue that down. And then for the piece up the top, I decided to cast this lovely bow that's in that Madame Garland design, and I'm going to glue that on with that same wood glue. And I'm going to position it in the center and then have the end ribbon pieces sort of draping along the top section. So I had to manipulate it a little bit. And down the bottom, I did decide to cast some more of those circular designs, but I didn't want any of the smaller bow up the top or the tassel down the bottom. So I'm just going to glue those in place. And then I took out Paint Couture's French Gold Luxe Metallic Paint. And I started off just painting the clay pieces that I had glued on. But I ended up deciding that I would actually paint the entire panels where those are sitting. It just ended up looking a little bit better. I'm also going to be adding that same gold to the bow up the top, just to tie that all together. And also I decided to extend that gold to the top framed portion of the wardrobe and also down the bottom. So we've got those pops of gold. I really adore this French gold. It has that beautiful elegance, but it's also a little bit more subtle than some of the other golds in the range. So it's definitely perfect for a French country look. Once I finished adding the French gold to the body of the wardrobe, I then added it to the little handles that were already in place. Next, I moved on to this little vanity. Now, it was missing the drawers, so I just cut out some balsa wood to the size and glued those in place. So we're just going to have fake drawers. And as you can see here, I'm just going over the top of it with that same French linen. I just sort of started that off as a base for each of them. When I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with a piece, I'll often paint it a white, and that will help me go in the right direction and work out what I want to do. Next, I am adding a messy coat here of a white chalk paint. Now, I wasn't 100% happy with the color, with that French linen color on it. So I'm going to add this to the body, just one coat, because I am actually going to create a faux wood look. I want that lovely warm light brown tone. So once that was completely dry, I then took out the Van Dyke Brown antiquing glaze, and I'm going to go over the top of the entire piece. And having that white tone, that uneven white paint job, really does help give that look of wood, because you've got the different tones in the glaze there that it's catching. And I will be doing a little bit of wiping back here and there, because as I said, I do want it to look not quite a bleached wood, but just a lighter warm brown tone. Once I had finished covering that and wiped a little bit of that back, I then decided that I wanted to add a little bit of detail to the mirror. It just felt a little bit too plain for French country. So I'm going to work my clay into this floral mold and then pull that out. And I'm going to be adding some of that Sealy's Quickset wood glue to the back of it. And I'm just going to be gluing that to the top of the mirror. I just love this little mini floral garland. I definitely think it fits in with that French country theme. And then when it was a little bit dry, it had a couple of hours to dry, I took out that same French Gold Luxe Metallic paint by Paint Couture, and I'm going to go over the top of the flower garland to start off with. I then moved on to adding some of that French gold to the rest of the frame of the mirror, and then I just hit a few of the edges just to give a little bit of a highlight. Next, I'm going to use these little beads that I thrifted. They reminded me of some sweet little bow-like handles, and I'm just going to attach them with some Gorilla Super Glue. I'm just putting some little beads of glue in the position where I want them on the little dresser there. I've got that laying down, and then I'm just dropping the little bead on top of the glue. Next, I'm going to work on a chair to go with my little dresser. I really love the shape. I actually don't mind the fabric on the cushion, so I'm going to peel that off and put it to one side. And then I'm going to add 2 coats of this white chalk paint to the entire chair. Now I am going to be painting it to match the dresser, so I will be going over the top of this with that Van Dyke brown glaze. So I don't need the coverage on this to be perfect. It can have a few spots that are a little bit lighter than others. That's absolutely fine. Once the paint was dry, I then took out that same Van Dyke brown glaze, and I'm going to add it over the top of the entire chair, just like we did with the vanity, brushing it on. I don't want to go in too heavy, and if it does get a little bit too heavy in any spots, I can just wipe that back. And if I wipe too much back, I can come back in and layer some more of that glaze over the top. Once that glaze was completely dry, I then went in with some of that French gold, and I'm just going to be adding it to some of the details, again to give it a bit of elegance and to tie it in with the dresser. And then I'm going to use some super glue to glue the cushion back in place. We're going to be focusing on this other chair here. So this is just a sort of armchair. I'm envisioning this sitting in the corner of the bedroom. I loved the shape. I did not love the color of the fabric. So I did decide that I would go in and paint the entire chair, including the fabric, with that same white chalk paint. This is Farmhouse Linen by Paint Couture. And I'm going over the fabric. Remember, I'm not actually going to need to sit in this, so it's okay if the fabric does get a little bit hard. I just didn't love the color, and I thought I would try painting it before I tried replacing it. So I did paint the whole thing, but then I didn't really like the look of the fabric on the arms. They were coming away anyway, so I ended up peeling off that fabric from the arms just with some pliers, and then I went in and touched up the paint there. Once I had finished painting the entire chair, I then focused on the fabric. I wanted to come in with this French Rose mineral paint by Paint Couture. It's a lovely light pink, and I'm just going to be painting over the top of the fabric on the front and back upper part of the chair, and obviously the seat cushion part of the chair. And I only needed to do 1 coat and just a few touch-ups in other areas, and I'm glad I tried painting the fabric first. I'm saving money here. I'm not going out and buying new fabric, but I'm still able to give this a fresh look. So definitely keep that in mind if you get Dollhouse furniture and you don't love the color of the fabric. Give it a go. Try painting over the top of it first before you decide to replace it. I let the fabric dry completely, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Glaze. Remember, I'm going for that lovely warm brown wood tone throughout the bedroom, so I'm going to go over the top of all of the sections we painted in white. And again, if I get any of the glaze on the cushion sections, I can wipe some of that back. That paint has a built-in sealer, but I actually liked a little bit of the age that it brought to the fabric. It gave it a bit more of a time-worn look. I then took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to go into each of the little grooves and the details on this piece and add some of that lovely metallic to those sections. This will just be very subtle, but a nice little bit of shine. I decided I wanted to add a little bit more detail to the chair, so I'm going to cast that same bow from Redesign's Madame Garland mold that we added to the top of the wardrobe, and I'm going to add that to the top of the chair. And I'm just adding it with some wood glue, and I'm going to have the ribbons draping down the side of the chair. And then I did decide to come in and I'm using Bronze Luxe Metallic over the top of the bow for a little bit more shine. And I just love the beautiful elegance, and honestly it's just very pretty adding that little bow to the chair. I love statement chairs. I have a couple in my bedroom, and this definitely feels like a statement chair for my dollhouse bedroom. Next, I want to make an artwork for the room. I have this little frame here that is from a Redesign mold that I cast in resin previously. I will link that in the description. And I'm just going to paint the entire thing with 2 coats of Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic. And this is just the perfect scale for a dollhouse room. So keep that in mind if you're doing up a dollhouse, that often furniture or fondant molds can often be repurposed to create your own dollhouse decor. Once the 2 coats were dry, I took out this piece. It's from Roycycled Treasures. This little image is from the catalogue decoupage paper, and it's of one of my favorite papers called Two Riders, I believe. I'm just cutting out the shape. You could see I already measured it to the size that I would need it, so I'm just cutting it to size. And then I'm also going to cut a piece of blank white paper to go as a backing for it as well. I'm then going to use some super glue to attach it to the frame. While that's drying, I'm going to focus on this little lamp that I bought online. It's battery operated, it actually works, and I'm going to be adding this little resin piece that I made from a Redesign mold. I had it in my stash and it was already painted in Paint Couture's Antique Gold Luxe Metallic. I'm just cutting it to size, and then I'm going to be using some hot glue to attach it to my round lamp base there. So it does curve around pretty easily. I have heated that up with a hairdryer, and then I'm going to add some of that Van Dyke Brown antiquing glaze to the lampshade to give it a little bit of age. And then once that's completely dry, I am going to use that same antique gold that's on the bow. I'm going to add that to the top and bottom rim of the lamp. So I'm just adding a little bit of elegance, a little bit of something to that lamp to give it a bit more character. Finally, I had this little dollhouse artwork that I bought online. I didn't love the gold color of the frame. It just felt a little bit too over the top. So I did go in and add some of Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I wasn't crazy about the image in the frame for my particular bedroom. It didn't go with the colors. So I am going to print off an image to the right scale, and I'm going to attach that to the picture instead. Now let's put it all together. I'm first of all going to position the mantle in the back up the center there, and I did buy some of this museum wax. This is going to be used to hold up my pictures and any wall lights that I add. You just rub it between your fingers, and you want to add 2, 3, even 4 depending on the weight of your item to the back, and then that will stick in place without damaging your wallpaper or your paint, and you can pull it back and move it around. I'm then going to position my little chair in the corner there, and on the mantle I have these little candlesticks that I bought at the Dollhouse fair. You'll find that in the Dollhouse playlist. I also got this clock here. They had so many gorgeous little items. Once I put the clock there, I realized I was going to have to reposition the frame. That's fine. That's why we used the museum wax. I just moved it up a little bit. I then came in with the little side table, and I'm going to add the lamp there as well. And is a dollhouse really complete without its own minier dollhouse to go in it? I found that one from the same lady that I bought the bulk lot of furniture from. As you can see here, I've added a different image to that frame that we painted, and I think that it is a much better option for my room. I did decide to reposition the dollhouse and have that on the floor so that I could add a little basket of flowers instead. And here's a look at the finished room. I'm so pleased with how this has all come together. Obviously, I'll make some little tweaks and adjustments over time, but I'm definitely pleased with my first room. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find most of the paint products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.